Reinach goes for a run around the fringes. Reinach puts a kick over for himself. Reinach! Oh, he's more dangerous than climate change. Reinach is in.
Hello and welcome to the Rugby Hive. I'm Dallen Stanford, and despite my South African accent, I was fortunate enough to play rugby for the United States on the Sevens World Series.
And I'm Robin MacDowell, a former Canadian Sevens international. Back in my playing days, I went head-to-head against Dallen in the USA.
For several years, Robin has coached international sevens for various countries, including Canada and Mexico. He's massively passionate about growing the game across the Americas through his MacDowell rugby programs at all levels. I've been fortunate to be a World Rugby commentator for the past decade, getting the opportunity to be a lead broadcaster at the recent 2023 Rugby World Cup in France, the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan, and the amazing Sevens World Series.
More than a decade later, we are teaming up to bring you insights from legendary players, coaches from around the world.
This is the Rugby Hive podcast.
Dupont on the outside, back inside is Jalibert. Here come the French, linking beautifully. That's champagne rugby, and I can say that because it's from France.
Hello and welcome to season 4 of the Rugby Hive. We're back, my sleek sensations. It's taken us a long time. This is year 6 of the Hive. After kicking things off in 2020, we've spoken with legendary rugby players, coaches, and broadcasters from 5 continents, representing 14 nations across 36 episodes. It's great to be back. I'm Batman, and you're Robin.
We've never really left. Lots of projects on the go, and it's been a great journey connecting PR7s, Rugby 10s, World Series, and of course you coming up in our neck of the woods a few years ago, and we'll get you back up here soon.
I can't wait for that, my friend. Now, listen, a lot has happened in the rugby world. Recently, the Hong Kong Sevens turned 50 years old, almost as old as us, buddy, starting back in 1976. What a vibe. I mean, the crowd looked amazing. The play was phenomenal, huh?
Yeah, you have a bit of FOMO, but you're also like, man, it's a long trip. That's a long trip home. Like you have FOMO until it's like the Monday, and these guys got 20 hours on the plane and another 30 just in transit. So we know it looked amazing. And it was great to see all the old faces, all the guys that we played against, Ben Gollings, Andy Vilk. Friday was there. They actually won it the first year I was there. And I was obviously in the stands enjoying a cold one and cheering Ben on. But it looked amazing.
Yeah, it was so good. And then the Blitzboks winning, they've been on unbelievable form in the men's side, winning for the very first time ever, which is amazing in Hong Kong. And then the Black Fern Sevens just carving it up, the NZ Sevens winning back to back to back to back.
Yeah, somebody's got to solve that puzzle. It's always interesting. We're halfway through this Olympic cycle, and like the Australians at the last Olympics in Paris, they were on complete form, but sometimes they peak too early, and obviously sevens is cruel. So Canada might not get their number until it counts as far as LA Sevens comes up here.
Well, we have to see how that goes. Now, listen, I might be at the Hong Kong Sevens next year. Tsunami are looking to get me out there to do some ambassadorship and a couple of goose steps and some up and unders and some tackles. So who knows? We could have another reunion there if you end up getting there, and maybe Ben Gollings brings us along for the ride.
I'm all in. I'll be your translator.
Love it. Okay, listen, so it's been a long time since we've been on the pod, last year, about this time, in fact. And so, Robin, give us a little bit about what you've been up to just in 2026. Obviously not a massive play-by-play, but what's been happening in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, lots of rugby, basically lots of rugby. Our Island Academy full-time has been full throttle. We're thick into the high school season now, which is exciting, and been back involved with the Canadian Women's Olympic Pathway programs again, which is good. Post Paris, head coach Jocelyn Berriot is building towards LA, and it's been great. I got to go to the Junior Pan Am Games in Paraguay last year, and I think 4 or 5 of those athletes have already moved on to the series this year, which is super exciting. And looking forward to going to the FISU Games later this year in Stellenbosch in your neck of the woods. So it should be a magic year. But yeah, just lots of rugby and just grateful. I just recently wrapped up a 6-city, 3-country, 11-day trip across Canada, small town Canada, to northern Canada, the Yukon next to Alaska there. back home for 20 hours, then to Mexico City, then to Puebla to partner with Rugby Mexico, and then up to Tampa for the epic Tropical Sevens, and then home. So grateful to be back, and but it's so nice to be on the rugby roller coaster and catching up with all our rugby family across the world. What's been going on for your side in sunny California?
Yeah, firstly, pal, that's amazing. I know how busy you are. You just even get a little slot here to record the Hive. You're goose stepping around like an absolute sleek sensation. Myself and Verity, we've had a busy few months as well. We actually moved down to beautiful San Diego. So we're here in the North Counties in a place called Oceanside. It's just awesome to be close to the beach again. And there's a big rugby community, a lot of South Africans. Some of the Sevens teammates that we would have played against you, like Todd Clever, he's nearby. Matt Hawkins, the polar bear. Justin Boyd, the speedster. And then there's some beach rugby in Del Mar. So even though I've got one ACL, I'm still able to lurk on the wing and catch a ball or two here and there with the Del Mar hoods.
That's epic. I love the polar bear. That's the best name ever.
Oh, he's so good. He's going strong. We play a lot of pickleball, and he actually moves really well for the polar bear. I thought I'd smoke him, but I can't lie. He's beating me so far. I was going to say I'm up on a few, but no, I just can't lie. But then, buddy, work-wise, very exciting. It's been about a year since I've started my broadcast academy business, developing sports commentators. Nearly 100 people from 25 countries have taken the rugby broadcast intensive, and many of those have been now working, in broadcasting. Try to provide opportunities where I can. We're on a WhatsApp group with a group and sending them more work, which has been really good. And then also I do a mentorship program every month. So remote session, small group classes. They get to work on international 7s and 15s. So people can check it out at dallenstanford.com. And then the course, it established originally with the Rugby 10s, the legends there, who offer a 3-level course. So it's the only organization that do that. And then they get to work on site with me at a future Rugby 10s event. But Robin, you and I are going to be teaming up with MacDowell Rugby Academy and some commentating later this year, my friend.
It's super exciting. And let me tell you, we got some teenagers. We got this girl in our program. She came in like halfway through the first month of the year, and she's 15 years old. And I said, you're the Canadian Kelly Clarkson. She could have her own show. So she's definitely somebody you want to listen to as a commentary. But just like coaching or playing, you don't always, you sometimes coach like you've been coached, and you don't ever, focus on it. We know there's some commentators out there like you that are just as entertaining as the game, and there's some that are less entertaining. So being polished, I know I've gone through a bit of your expertise ahead of a national championship and a few of those, and just the proactivity as far as like you guided me. Go in a couple days early, meet all the coaches, meet the players, tell the stories, and that was my feedback after the championship. It was so nice. Those little shout outs, a little bit of detail tells a story, because every single person on the field has a story, has a family, has a club, has a network that really appreciates that and makes it that experience that much greater. But then, of course, just having these polished commentaries, and then an expert like yourself that's worked from grassroots all the way up, did everything yourself as we do. And then it's only going to make you better as well at the top end.
Yeah, no, it's so great. And kind of the reason why I got started was because when I was in broadcasting the very first time, I just got handed a microphone. It was like, hey, you love talking and you love rugby, go for it. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know the ins and outs, the intricacies of how broadcasting works, not just the rugby element side of it. So very cool to be able to give back and work with young commentators, all the way from, I've got some young teenagers all the way to people that are in their 70s that still would like to learn a bit more about broadcasting, which is great. And then, Pal, I've been also promoting the Algarve Sevens as one of the ambassadors and commentators, going back to beautiful Portugal for the third time later this year. And how lucky we get to team up at that multi-sport event June 5 to 7. The Rugby Hive is back, my friend. You and me teaming up, and your missus as well.
Yeah, I'll be representing Guerrilla Rugby out of Texas. Good friends there, Jim Reed and Mickey, the Ultimate Gorilla. Yeah, super excited. I've been working with them. I went down to Dallas, Texas area, I think 7 years ago now, after the San Francisco Sevens World Cup, where I worked with Jim. He was our liaison officer at the World Cup there. And then they'll call me up before, Coach MacDowell, I got a question. We're at the Rugby Town Sevens. What do you think? And, so it's just been this really great bond over the years. And it'll be my first time coaching at a tournament. And they're putting together an elite women's team, and obviously that's a space that I have a lot of experience. And so we're going to bolster it with Canadians and Americans, but really looking forward to it. But they have one policy, cowboy hats on, so that works with my Saskatchewan soul. So can't wait to do a couple goose steps and a couple back kicks. So yeah, it'll be good.
No, it'd be great. And Guerrilla Rugby, as you said, they bring the color, they bring the flair. They're just such a great traveling group as well. People can check out algov7s.com. And if you have a sevens team and you want to join, there is 1 or 2 spots left in the women's or men's division. There's also a social division as well. Then a couple other little projects I've been working on is creating content for the Lisbon Sevens. That's a youth event that is in Portugal as well. The 8th edition takes place February 13th and 14th. 2027 division for girls under 16, under 18, and boys under 14, under 16, under 18. Visit junior7s.com for more details. And who knows, Robs, we may see one of your teams or a couple of your teams there in Lisbon next year.
Well, I need a translator. Like, with all the work you're doing over there, how's your Portuguese?
Oh, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I just bring the missus along and she knows how
Obrigado.
to say it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Obrigado.
Love that. No, I went to Portugal first time with the Rugby 10s in 2021. It was actually our honeymoon. Always a rugby trip coinciding. Honeymoon's over, sweetheart. Literally, honeymoon's over. Rugby 10s. You're going back to Canada. God bless my wife. But yeah, I had the best experience. It's actually one of the more affordable European countries. Don't tell anybody because it's the best. The food is the best. The weather's the best. The people are the best. Everything's the best, and it's quite affordable. So I'm super excited to come back there. I'll go there all day, and then yeah, we're hoping to take our youth groups there next February, so those kids can have a European experience, because we've only done Germany, and we're ready to vibe in Portugal.
Oh, I can't wait for that. That's brilliant. Then the last couple of things I've been working on was creating more content for the Rugby Town Sevens. Of course, we know that's a legendary event. I'll never forget commentating when you came off the bench as the coach and scored one of the best tries they've ever seen there. The event takes place this year, August 21 to 23 in Glendale, Colorado. Absolute blockbuster. Then I'll be doing some commentary for the Tag Challenger Series, a global non-contact game that's going strong with a lot of cool features, more steps in the Great Wall of China. And then very busy now with Major League Rugby Season 9 kicking off. In the OS studios, they fly me out to New York City, calling matches remotely from the Big Apple, going again this weekend. It's been pretty fascinating to see how the league has, grown over the years since 2018. Also sad when some teams have dropped out, particularly our Canadian friends also. But now MLR has 6 teams, a lot of American players playing for each different side. They've reduced the number of foreign slots, but it's been exciting to be back in the Major League Rugby hot seat with ESPN.
Just going back now, it's been I think it's been 5-6 years since that Rugby Town try. I think it was 90 meters. Was it 95 meters now?
I think so.
Something like that, yeah.
110.
Don't pull up the video.
No, you got it in the parking lot, then tripped over.
I had one of your gloves on, so I didn't drop it.
Brilliant. Okay, Robs, let's switch across to today's guest. All right. So today's guest, one of South Africa's greatest flyers of all time, and one of the best kickers the game has ever seen. Now, for me, growing up in South Africa, my grandfather gave me an old VHS tape. It had 101 tries on it, a lot of international tries, but a lot of South African tries. And I was about 10 years old. And it's probably the reason now that I look back, a lot of people ask me, how did I get into commentating and that sort of stuff? Did I always like it, or did I find it later? And now I think back to a 10-year-old, running around in the garden, goose-stepping everybody. I was commentating using Bill McLaren's one-liners, all from that 101 tapes that I would watch like 10 times a day. But on there, Naas Botha was featured a lot for South Africa. South Africa was going through the isolation period, but he was an unbelievable player. It was alongside one of my favorite players of all time, Dani Gerber, in the centers. And then Naas would go on. He'd work for SuperSport for 30 years in South Africa. And then literally last month, he and his family relocated to Kansas City, Missouri. So we got connected via a mutual friend. I asked him about his next chapter, and he wants to be involved in broadcasting, perhaps a rugby show, as we showcase the sport to new fans ahead of Rugby World Cup 2031 and 2033 here in America. So it's pretty amazing. We had that quick chat, and I said, listen, why don't I feature you on the Rugby Hive? We can hear more about your story and see how the game has evolved from the early era before it became professional. But I bet, Robs, he would love your precision kicking ball.
Well, for our guests, our listeners, I should say, I wasn't invited to this because it was all Afrikaans, so I would have just gotten in the way of that one. But no, it must be super special for you, full circle, to connect with some of your heroes. For me, for our Canadian listeners, Mom, I know my mom's listening. That's our listener up here. But no, we used to grow up watching Rock'em Sock'em with Don Cherry. So every Christmas you get this Rock'em Sock'em with all the best goals and the best fights and best dirtiest hits of the year. So I can imagine how exciting that is. But no, that's super special. And it's amazing. These South Africans just pop up all over the place. And whenever I get a phone call from a from a family with the Afrikaans accent. I'm like, this kid is going to be good at rugby, and this dad is going to be like, they're so happy to find us in North America because we provide full-time professional coaching and opportunities for these kids that move to small town North America, and they come from the maddest rugby country in the world to and the best weather with the most opportunities for sport to sometimes some barren parts of North America. So that's super special for you, and love the episode.
Yeah, that's so great. Now, a couple of thank yous, of course, some shout outs. Definitely want to shout out Avant Cape Brandy, co-founded by 15 international rugby players, voted best brandy in South Africa, which is a big deal. South Africans love their brandy. Available in South Africa and the UK, avantbrandy.com. Fill it up again, my friends. And then World Rugby Shop, of course, creators of our brilliant Rugby Hive merch. Just search Rugby Hive at worldrugbyshop.com. Gift some of the superb items to your family, your friends, spoil yourself. Also, check out Tsunami Sport, the eco-friendly teamwear for all sports. Don't just play, inspire. And I've actually teamed up with Tsunami for a sleek sensation summer sevens package. I want you to say that fast after a few beers, my friend. You get a jersey, pair of shorts, socks with awesome designs, $90 per person for your sevens team. Email info@legacyecowear.com. Say sleek sensation in the caption or the email, and you'll get that special deal as well. And then Gilbert Rugby Canada, of course. GilbertRugbyCanada.com have some remarkable rugby items, including Robin's precision kicking ball and a few other brilliant shots. And then in Canada, we talk about the South Africans, but Canada Biltong, of course, doing brilliant work there. I really wish I lived closer, but you can check it out, CanadaBiltong.com. You get stuff for the bride there as well. And then, of course, your MacDowell Rugby Academy, join one of the best player development academies in the world, Robs. I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about your academy and how do people get involved?
Yeah, just reach out to us via the Hive or via MacDowell Rugby on Instagram or social media, or just go to our website. But as I'm sure you've learned as a young man moving from South Africa to North America, there's barriers. We have massive countries. We have different weather, and it's expensive to get around. But a lifelong of trying to represent my country, and then finally doing it. And then once, I remember being in Hong Kong actually 20 years ago, almost to the day, the last time I played there, and I was looking up at our Maple Leaf, and I was like, man, when I'm done, there's got to be better guys than me out there. I'm going to go find them. And so I spent the last 20 years basically traveling around the country and now the world looking for talent, trying to create space. And it's all good for you and I or any coach to pop into a small town and a couple high fives, handshakes, and a few tips. But we have a full-time training program on beautiful Vancouver Island, which is one of the nicest natural, beautiful places in the world. We call it the New Zealand of the North, just outside of Vancouver here. And we have a new $100 million training facility. These kids get course credit. You get to go to school and get course credit for playing rugby. We've got 7 world-class coaches that are all involved with our national teams or other national teams that have all played professionally as well. But it's a high-performance program, but it's not a high-performance culture. So we try and make you smile as much as Dallen while learning and growing. And I think life is really about the circle. And if you can be in a circle that is going to help you grow and get the best out of you, that's what it's all about, especially with what's going on in the world and all the distractions these kids have. But it's like being on tour 24/7. That's how I explain it.
It's brilliant. It's truly remarkable what you created that side. And I got a chance to visit last year. I'll be coming back this year again with Verity and can't wait to, see what you've done that side. Amazing, And then if people are interested in learning more about rugby broadcasting as well, they can head to my website, dallenstanford.com, check out one of the online courses. Now, as we launch season 4, we're keen to add partners as we grow. We have 20,000 downloads so far, 35,000 views on YouTube. And then, of course, our personal networks around the globe as well. So keep connected with our socials at Rugby Hive on X, Facebook, and YouTube, at My Rugby Hive on Instagram. Keep safe out there. We appreciate all your support. It's time now for season 4, episode 37 with Springbok legend Naas Botha. It's remarkable to have one of the world's greatest fly-halves of all time on the Rugby Hive podcast. And Naas, also good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you very much, Dallen.
So listen, welcome to America. Tell us a little about how your family's setting in and how you got to arrive in Kansas.
We've contemplated for a long time. Do we want to do it? Do we don't want to do it? And I think at the end, we just I want to say a little bit of different scenery, if I can put it that way. We're a little bit familiar with America in the sense that my wife actually studied at Nebraska University. She was there on a track and field scholarship. I was a little bit involved in Dallas with the Cowboys and also Dallas Harlequins. And we just thought, let's do something else. Time is running out. It's time for a little bit of a change. And it wasn't too much of thinking about the nitty gritty and whatever. It was just let's do it. Let's do something else. And then we've got a very good friend here, Leon Versfeld, and his family in Kansas, and we're settling down very nicely. So we enjoying it. As we all know, if life was just roses, it would have been absolutely fantastic. But we've got absolutely no complaints.
Yeah, and then your kids are great sports fanatics as well. Is that right?
Yeah, they played a lot of field hockey at school. There's various rumors that's running around, but all nonsense. So we'll just leave it there. We all love sport because it's quite a coming out of a sort of sporting family. But the one daughter finished the agriculture degree in South Africa, and the other one is studying theology now. So they're quite busy. But I think at the end, Dallen, it's really nobody really cares about what you do, as long as you enjoy what you're doing. And I think that's where we are, is we actually enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. A great answer. Naas, let's go all the way back because you've had an unbelievable career. Let's first start with your name, right? Naas. So, how did you get the name Naas? And I know your birth name was Hendrik, right? When you were born.
Yeah, I was actually Hendrik Ignatius. Yeah. And then my dad was also called Hendrik. So then it went to Ignatius. That's a little bit complicated. Then it went to Naasius. And then one day somebody called me Naas, and that's the name that actually stuck. And it's not really a very common name, if I can put it that way. I've heard of a couple of other guys in South Africa being called Naas, but it's. But the thing is, at the end, I wasn't one of the kids that had all these dreams, because lately, and I know, sport is a different kettle of fish. It's different because you see it every day on TV and it's on social media. In my days, we only started having TVs in, I think, 1974, if I'm correct. So that's the first time that you experienced that, and that was when I was finishing high school, put it that way, in 75. So I never had all these dreams. Oh, I want to play for the Springboks, and I want to do this, and I wanted to do that. I actually went through all the motions, if you want to put it. In my days, the Bulls were called Northern Transvaal, and I played Northern Transvaal primary school. Then I played under 15. They had it for 2 years, but after that, never again. Then I played for the high school. Then I played for the under 20s, and then I played for the senior team at quite a young age. And in the meantime, I had a couple of detours: America, Italy, Ireland, and I started in 77 playing for Northern Transvaal, finishing up in 92. So it was quite a long career. And so I actually wanted to, Dallen, I actually wanted to play baseball. I played 2 Little League World Championships for South Africa as under 16, but we played in Europe. And I think in those days, the winners in Europe, we lost both times the final, but the winners actually came over. Then they played the Little League World Championship in America. So I missed out on that. It's just a sport that I really loved. And at the end, I got stuck with rugby. And, I actually played never to become the greatest, the best, whatever you want to call it. Why? Because it's a team sport. You need 15 guys to work for the same goal. And that's it. A fly can only be as good as the forwards and the scrum half and the rest of the back line. So it's one of the few really team sports. If you look at a number of the other sports, you take baseball, it's a team game, but it's actually individual. If you take cricket, it's actually a team game, but a bowler can win you a game, or a batsman can win you a game. American football, it's a team sport, but it's a rugby that actually can. I think one of the few sports that can actually accommodate anybody, and that's what I think I enjoyed at the end. And to be honest, Dallen, I was very fortunate. I played in an era. I know lately South Africa, we're winning World Cups left, right, and center. We've got good squads and whatever, but I was also very fortunate to play alongside some of the most amazing rugby talent in South Africa. So, that's the way I look at the whole, let's say, the bigger picture of my rugby career.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. So full circle in many ways, wanting to come to America at a young age to play baseball, and here you are back living now, But let's touch on a few things. I've got quite a lot of questions lined up here. The Naas Botha boot, okay? So, growing up in South Africa myself, obviously we all wanted to play rugby and did. Not all of us could kick the ball very well, but we would obviously watch your clips. You kicked 18 drop goals in 28 tests for the Springboks. In first class rugby, you kicked 273 drop goals. The numbers are absolutely mental. Where did that obsession with kicking start? And also, was there a coach or, a field in Brits, or, how did you come to realize, hey, this could be my weapon?
Never thought about it that way. I actually looked at it. I had a job to do for the team, and that was just part of my job. I was the kicker, so as Andre Pollard and the guys are lately for South Africa, that's your job. It's the same as the hooker needs to put the ball in straight in the line out. The jumpers need to catch the ball. You need to scrum well. I never really saw it as special, if I can put it that way. The thing what I loved about a drop, and maybe it's because I was quite comfortable in doing it. That's one. Secondly, I always felt that, think about it, in rugby terms, you're 40 meters away from your goal line. You haven't made a mistake, okay, but you're 3 points down. Where if it's a penalty, you've done something wrong, and I get the opportunity to kick a penalty. But with the drop kick, it's like you did nothing wrong, but you're still 3 points down. Now, if you not too careful, you might be 12 points down after 4 drop kicks, So I actually just never really thought about it. At one stage, I felt that it can change the game. I always looked at the job of a fly-half in the sense that I need to win us games that we actually losing. That's the way I looked at my role. But you needed everybody else to contribute to that effort for me to be able to do that. It's the same as you create that last try opportunity for the wing, and he needs to score, and that's it. And that's the way. So I never, I played alongside a Donnie Gerber. Now, you're talking of centers in the history of the game, and you had Philip Sella and Brian O'Driscoll, and I can give you names and names but there's a few that can match what Donnie Gerber did for South Africa at centre. So, so I had so many options on my inside, on my outside. And some games just, you feel you try and you're not actually doing something good. Then you try again and you're not scoring, and you try again, you're not scoring. And then I thought, okay, a quick drop or two, and then, you're on the front foot again. It sometimes did change the game at that moment. And that's why I still feel lately there's a number of opportunities where you would think, okay, the guy would just drop back in the pocket, take the drop, win the game, and walk off the field. And they don't do it. And then I think, the game hasn't really changed, if I can put it that way. So what's it all about? You want to score more points than the opposition. You want to walk off as the winner. Now, if that means, if you take World Cup finals, the Joel Stransky drop, the Johnny Wilkinson drop, the one that Andrew Mertens missed with 2-3 minutes to go in '95, where Joel made his. Little things like that can change games very, very quickly. And I think maybe lately it's a little bit more the technique that's lacking, as not using the opportunities.
Yeah, that's well said, And the other one I want to add is Yanni de Beer kicking it against England as well for South
Yeah,
Africa.
five against England.
Exactly, yes.
Now, if let's go back to that game, because it was like I saw it yesterday, and I spoke to Nick Mellett about it, and he said they felt that can actually change the game, because they analysed how England played, and I thought, okay, if we can get Yanni to do this, and he was a fantastic kicker off the ball, Yanni de Beer, we can win that game. And at the end, they did. And he did 5 amazing drop kicks. So that's how we can go through histories. There's Dan Carter that did a couple of drop kicks in vital games. George Ford did it the other day. We can go through it. The French are actually extremely good with that. Years ago, Canberra Berua, he was the guy that I sort of liked in the way that, because he was, as we call it, around the corner kick. I don't know how you can put it, but not the straight as in the 50s and 60s. So there's so many things that you can look at, but it's just, I want to say, it's just part of the game. It's nothing special, and that's the way we need to keep looking at it. But I think guys can actually implement it a little bit more, especially when you see, okay, we're not getting through. Do a quick one, and it might just change the game at that moment.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's a bit of a lost art in the modern day game for sure. Now, you wrote a book called Creative Rugby. Don't just sweat it, think it. Give listeners a bit of a background as to what you wanted to share in that.
See, I just love the word talent. Doesn't matter which sport. If it's tennis, if it's golf, if it's rugby, soccer, it doesn't matter. It's just talent. And the thing that always fascinated me is, why are you better than me? There must be something. Yes, talent plays a part. Hard work plays a part. Talent and hard work. We can go through all the motivational things that we all know for so many years, and it's amazing. It's still the same today. Dedication, hard work, discipline, self-belief. It's all. But there's something that some guys just make them different to the normal guy, and then we sort of got into, how can we make rugby, I want to say, more spectacular sport, if I can put it that way. Because there was, or there is, this attitude, I could only kick. But there's there's the joke, me sitting on a plane, and the guy next to me introduced himself, and he said, "Oh, I'm actually your center." And then, my comeback story is, it's very difficult to smile at it, if I tongue in cheek now, because everybody knows Donny Gerber, and he was playing center next to me. So it's amazing that everybody knows him. But so there's a joke with the joke with the joke, okay? But it's just that I think there's a lot more to it. And it's actually the mental side that really got me going a little bit. And lately, we've got involved with genetic brain profiling, and I actually implemented in a school team that I did coach till August last year, where we looked at how can your genetic profile play a part in the overall game plan, if I can put it that way. For argument's sake, you my coach, you're coaching me now, okay? How do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you know how I'm going to react? How do you know how I listen? How do you know, am I a listener, or do I need to see something visually? If you coach, do you need to show me, or can I actually pick it up by just listening? And so there's the 5 modules that we look into: the brain, the eye, the hand, the ear, and the foot, and how it plays a part. And under stress, which of the 5 modalities is blocked, so you understand a little bit how you communicate, how you listen to instructions. Um, you know, um, a simple example is a right ear wants to hear facts, and the left ear is the emotional ear. So if the tone of voice goes up, then the guy doesn't get the message. He's listening to the tone and the emotion in the voice. So there's so many things that's actually adding to where we were in the past, and that actually just got me going, and we looked at the team, for argument's sake, and we struggled a little bit. We didn't play to full potential, but then we did the profiling, and then we saw what we have in the team, and then we played according to the strength of the individuals, if I can put it that way. And then at the end, we had an absolutely great season, just by actually understanding what we're working with, what we can do to get the maximum out of the player, but also for him to feel he's actually contributing to a team effort. So there's so many different things, but the thing that we started with is I just love talent, and I like to understand why is Messi, Ronaldo better than anybody else. Because otherwise there would have been 1,000 guys. That's all the same, but they're not. Tom Brady, better quarterback than a lot of other guys. And how long has American football been played? You know, for many many years. But there are different guys, and I love to understand now. The sad part is that even if I just go to a normal club game, even to a little hockey game or whatever, I'm trying to analyze the whole time. And that's getting a little bit irritating, you know. You're not sitting back and just enjoying it.
Yeah.
You're always trying to see, but why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? You're trying to analyze the whole time. And I think it's also, Dallen, it's also coming, maybe from working with Supersport in South Africa, the sport channel. 30 years analyzing about every single rugby game for many, many years, and seeing why are you doing this, that changed the game. And I love doing it. And sometimes it's a little bit irritating because I can't just go and sit and enjoy just a normal game.
Yeah, it's hard to switch it off, right? When you've been in that
Yeah.
capacity for your whole life and things like that. The science behind sport is fascinating, and it's amazing that you were developing that and it showed on the field with your team you coached. I want to touch on a few things about like work ethic. So let's talk about your unbelievable career with the Blue Bulls. Back then it was called Northern Transvaal. And a side story, my first ever rugby ball my grandfather gave me was a Northern Transvaal ball. Even though I grew up in Cape Town, he lived in Forest Smith, just outside of Bloemfontein, where my mom grew up. So it was kind of amazing. You went on to captain Northern Transvaal 128 times, a record. You kicked 2,511 points. So I want to know, just as a curious rugby person, what did a training week back then look like for you? You obviously had your regular trainings, but your kicking, you were so disciplined with it when nobody was watching. What did an average week look like when you're playing for Northern Transvaal?
We were amateurs then, so we trained on a Monday for an hour and a half, Wednesdays hour and a half, and Thursdays around about an hour. On Tuesdays, I normally went on my own because it's just part of sport. On a Monday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, everybody else wants to show you how good they can kick. So on Tuesdays, I went on my own. Took one ball, just one ball. So I use it also as part of my fitness, and kick it and go and fetch it. So it was easier to go and kick it over because then at least I know where the ball is.
Hang
You
on, but
kick
no
it
one
all over the park.
there was no one kicking you the ball back, so you had to go
No,
every
no,
time.
no.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
absolutely worked on my own.
Yeah.
Because then I know I can concentrate and nobody else is actually, disturbing the peace, if I can put it that way.
Mm.
And I had a very interesting scenario. In 1987, we had a Currie Cup final against Transvaal, now the Lions. And on the Tuesday, I arrived at the field and it was a heavy rainstorm, but seriously heavy. And I was sitting there and I thought, really, do I want to do this? Can easily go. And at the end, I don't know why, but I then decided to actually go and in the rain, go and do my kicking. And on the Saturday, the Wednesday, fantastic day, sunny, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, sunny, suddenly by 12 o'clock, by 3:30 when we kicked off, we had hail, we had sunshine, we had rain, we had thunder, we had everything. Okay. And at the end, we did win the Currie Cup 24-18. And that's the day I scored all 24 points. But if you look at the game, then you'll see Adolf Milan, Adri Gelnys, guys that absolutely fantastic. Peter Nel, that the guys that some special, I want to say, special moments that contributed to the team, okay, at the end. But the question still sticks with me, and that's coming back to your question of discipline, work ethics, and whatever. What would have happened if I didn't get out of the car? And I didn't do that because when that happened on the Saturday, I was actually quite comfortable in the situation I was in. Okay. Nobody thought it was going to rain on the weekend. Okay. Nobody knew that, but it actually helped me. Okay. So that's the one that we'll never know the answer because it was a good result at the end. So it all worked out nicely. And then I never really kicked on Sundays. I was a little bit anti that, but I loved kicking Christmas Day, okay, and New Year's Day, and only because I realized you're not going to practice, so I've got 2 days extra practice, but that's just mind games, At the end, sport for me is a mind game. And it depends on your own way of looking at your own career, little things that every guy somewhere along the line, they all do something different, and that's why they reach the top. And mine was maybe the 2 days. I put a little bit of extra in. I don't know. But at the end, I look back and I say, listen, I feel comfortable with my career. Why? Because I believe I contributed to the teams that I played in to be successful.
Yeah, and that preparation is so key as well. You know, I just love that story about the rain. I want to talk about your Springbok debut. Can you take us back? You were 22 years old. What was it like running out on the field, representing the Springboks for the first time, the green and gold, and and what was it like for your family as well?
I think, firstly, to say, you know, we came out of a very difficult political era. You know that. We all know that. We weren't um, playing international rugby on a regular basis. We did play, my first one was against South America. That's actually a little bit more Argentina, if you can call it that, but it was combined with Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay. Okay. And my first international game was on a cricket pitch at the Wanderers,
Oh, wow.
not at Ellis Park. Yeah, can you believe that? So well, we played against the Jaguars at the Wanderers, the cricket ground. So that's an interesting one to start off an international career. And then when I really got into the whole thing of rugby, I thought, okay, there's two things, and it's easy now to say it, but in those days, you know, you've been there, you've played the game, as is so many other. You don't take in too much at the time. Why? Because you think, oh, if I don't do it this week, I'll do it next week. If I don't do it this year, I'll do it next year. You know, and then suddenly you might get injured and you might never play the game. But we don't think like that. You just think, oh, you know. And I feel sometimes I should have taken more in. I'm a little bit an unemotional guy, and that's not always the best, you know, but that's the way, you know, I think I survived. And if I go back to, you know, a couple of things, when I really got into rugby, I always wanted to play for Northern Transvaal. That I did. Okay. At one stage, just before I went to Italy, I was approached by one or two other provinces, but then I got to a point where I felt, you know, I'd rather leave the country before I leave Northern Transvaal. Okay, a little bit loyal, if I can put it that way. Okay, and then I said, okay, I never played rugby to be the Springbok captain. That just actually happened late in my career, but that's quite an achievement. But that's not why I played the game. I didn't play the game to be captain of Northern Transvaal. That just happened. Okay, but when I got into it, I was firstly wanted to play Northern Transvaal. That I did. Then I thought, okay, it would actually be fantastic to represent your country, because think about it. On a given Saturday, the whole population of South Africa is there, and you're one of the 15 best rugby players in the country. That's quite an achievement for an individual. You know, that's the way I looked at it. Okay. And then I thought, okay, if there's two teams that I would love to play against, is the British and Irish Lions. And I was extremely fortunate to do that in my first year in 1980. And then I also would have loved to tour New Zealand as a rugby player. Okay, we did that under extremely difficult conditions, but I was fortunate to do that. So if you ask me that you do whatever you wanted to do or got out of rugby what you wanted to get out of rugby, I can say yes. I played for my country. Being captain of the country was special, but it's not why I played the game, to be honest. Play against the British and Irish Lions. Yes, I did that, and and toured New Zealand. I did that. So I was very comfortable with what I actually achieved in my career.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Now, the great late Donnie Craven once said, "Give me Naas and I'll conquer the world." I love that quote. So can you give our viewers and listeners a bit of insight? How important is the role of the fly half, and is it the most important position on the field?
I think in my days, it was about, I would always say, the golden thread in a rugby team, it's 2, 8, 9, 10, and 15. You know that. If you've got good guys in those positions, you can build around that. Then I know tight head prop actually, you know, came with that, because you have to have a good tight head prop. Okay. But in my days, I think the game actually changed a little bit. I still believe that there's a little bit more to fly-off play than just be part of the team, because I know at one stage the guys wanted the inside center to actually be the vital player in the back line. At one stage in South Africa, because I think we struggled a little bit with fly-offs. The number 9 was actually played the dominant role in the halfbacks. But I think at the end, let's just stick to the game. And the game is, there are 8 guys that needs to make 7 guys looking good. That's the simple game, you know. And that's the way it is. You've got, if you take South Africa at the moment, why are we actually winning World Cups? Because we've got a fantastic pack of forwards, we've got great halfbacks, and we've got backline that can actually score tries. And I think so. Nothing changed. A lot of people come and tell us, "Oh, the game changed." And I say, "Really?" And I say, "Yeah, but And I said, "Okay, do you have to scrum? Yes. Do you have to do lineouts? Yes. Do you have to tackle? Yes." Now, a lot of guys said, "Yeah, but you never tackled." But in my days, the loose forwards tackled.
Yeah.
So I just play the game as it is, okay? And then, do you have to score tries? Do you have to do your kicks? Do you have to kick penalties out? So what changed, Dallen? What changed? Nothing changed.
Nothing.
A couple of laws changed, yes. I think mentality changed of players. I think coaches changed. But at the end, it's still the same game that you and me played so many years ago. So I think that's where we need to draw the line and say, listen, stop telling us the game changed, okay? Now, what did South Africa achieved in the last number of years? Got by far the best scrum.
Yeah.
Now, the scrum is to your advantage. You know, and I know they wanted to change that actually not long ago, to take the emphasis off the scrum. Why do you want to do that? That's, for me, the only part, think about this, the only part physically where you can dominate me. Legally, not illegally, legally. It's the scrum.
Yeah.
You can scrum me to pieces. You can tackle me sometimes to pieces, but that might be 1 or 2 tackles in a game. Okay. You can charge into a ruck or a maul. That's not legally part of the law. Okay. So where can you actually dominate me seriously? Is with the scrum. And South Africa actually, and I'm surprised that it looks like the French is actually sorting it out. But if you look at how many times teams against South Africa get penalized, we move the ball 50, 60 meters downfield. So you get penalized again because the lineout's still the team that got the penalty. So you always on the shorter end if you don't scrum well. And that teams don't really actually take that to heart and say, listen, we need to sort out our scrums. We need to match South Africa in the scrums. If we can do that, and you can go and have a look, the couple of times we've lost is where somebody actually matches in the scrum. And that's just the way it is. But with Rassie as the coach, and I think they identified and analyzed every single team to the T, that they know which and where we can take on the opposition, especially in the scrums. And they just got it right. And that's why South Africa, doesn't matter how you look at it, they won 4 World Cups. And you've got to compliment, especially at the moment, Rassi and the squad he put together. And they're taking it to the next level. And the rest of the world need to catch up. Otherwise, they're just going to fall behind.
Yeah, great insights. I love that. It's always good in Major League Rugby here in the US, seeing a lot of South African forwards come across, young forwards, that maybe you realize we'd like more opportunities somewhere else, and America is a good place for that. So I'm always excited to see young forwards coming out of South Africa because they can add value to, a growing league here as well. Now, I want to touch on the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about that chapter. Firstly, how did that come about? How was the, being involved in that NFL franchise and what happened in the end,
Okay. Firstly, in 81, when we went to New Zealand, we came via America. Okay. We played an international in Albany. As you know, it was only the 2 teams and a couple of officials that officially knew about the game. Okay. So we played against the Eagles then, or America, the USA. And then we played also a game in Chicago, and a guy just walked onto the field after the game and he said to me, "Would you like to be a kicker in American football?" I never even thought about it. Okay. Then never gave any half a second to that idea. And then in 82 actually, I got tackled in a game and tore my ligaments. And I started feeling I'm a little bit the punchback, if I can put it that way. Got late tackle quite a bit during games and whatever. So I thought maybe it's time for a change. Okay, so I found the guy and said, "Listen, I would actually like to see if I can do this." And he sort of organized for me to come over. And I was on a little bit of a around the USA trip. He organized the trip. I went to Chicago, but the field was frozen. I actually met the coach, Mike Ditka. Okay. But I couldn't. And then I went to Tampa, but the guy there, he didn't even know who the hell I was. So I went in. It's like, "Who are you?" I said, "No, this guy organized something." He said, "No, he doesn't know anything about it." So, and then I left, and then I got a call, and they said, "Go back again." Then at least they gave me 5 kicks. So I thought, okay. And then I went to Dallas, and I got a phone call while I was in the hotel, and the guy said, "Listen, I believe you can kick." I said, "Yeah, I think I can." He said, "Okay, let's meet at the Cowboy Stadium the next day." And it was raining. Okay. It was quite amazing. It was actually raining. And I just had, let's say, a fantastic tryout and finished up. And he said, "Let's go. And Coach Landry would like to meet you." So I went there and met him. And he said, "Here's a contract." So I was phoning home, see if I can get hold of anyone, because I knew that if I sign anything, that's professional sport, then as an amateur, I would be totally out of it, but out of it. Okay. And at the end, didn't get hold of anybody. So I thought, okay, let me just sign this. So signed the contract. And then I went to LA, then in Vegas. I wanted to buy golf clubs. So I bought myself a set of uh, Ben Hogan radials, and then went back home. Didn't tell anybody about this. Okay, nobody. And I survived about a week because I'm trying to figure out now, how am I going to tell anybody about this? Okay, and then a newspaper phoned me, and he said, like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was the early edition, and he said, "Listen, we've got the whole story." I said, "Please just give me till about 8 o'clock. Let me just get to the office and let the people know what's going on and whatever. And I told the guys at 8 o'clock. By then, um, the guy that was with me in the office, he said, I think you better leave. Okay. So I went to a movie house and I thought, okay, if I spend my time in the movie house, nobody will know where I am. Okay. And there was like 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock movie. So I thought if I just hang around there and go from one movie house to the next one to the next one, nobody will find me. And I was actually sitting in the movie house, and um, the manager of the movie house walked up to me. He said, "What did you do now?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, here's the front page. You're expelled out of rugby for the rest of your life." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." So then I was expelled. And then they called me in and they said, "Did you sign?" I said, "Yeah, I signed." I said, "Okay, sorry, you're expelled." Then I wanted to practice, okay? And then I get a phone call. And the people will say to me from Northern Transvaal, say, "Listen, you're not allowed on a rugby field." Can you believe it?
Oh,
Not
wow.
allowed on a rugby field. Then I go quietly there, hiding somewhere else, and to another rugby field. Next moment, phone call. "We told you, you're not allowed on a rugby field." And then the dean of the teachers college in Pretoria, he phoned me one day and said, "Listen, man, these fields are mine. You're welcome to train anytime." Okay, so I had a field that I could train on. And then out of the blue, I got reinstated. And I played actually for Northern Transvaal on the Wednesday night against Western Transvaal. That's the Leopards now, okay? And I actually scored 34 points, I think, on the night, okay? And on the Thursday, I got called in and they said, "Are you going to honor your contract?" I said, "Of course I'm going to honor my contract. I've got a contract. Can't just pull out of a contract." So 2 hours later, I was expelled again. Okay. And
Uh,
then I came over. I was treated extremely well by the Dallas Cowboys. What do you call it? Franchise?
yeah,
No,
franchise. Yeah.
it's a franchise. Okay.
Yeah.
They sent me to a kicking coach up in Nevada for 2 weeks. I loved that. Learned quite a bit. And then actually realized what professional sports all about. And then I played a couple of preseason games,
Mm.
and then didn't make the squad as such. And then started playing rugby in the meantime, also for Dallas Harlequins. But then I got an invite. In those days, they had a USFL league.
Okay.
And I got invited to San Antonio Gunslingers and had an absolutely fantastic tryout there. And they offered me a contract. And I still ask myself the question till today, what if I signed that contract? What if? Okay. Maybe we shouldn't, we wouldn't have this conversation today, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, but then I played for Dallas Harlequins. We won the national championship. Okay, so that was quite a little bit of an achievement. And then the year later, I went up to New England Patriots for a mini camp. I think they called it a mini camp. Also kicked very, very nicely there. But in the meantime, then I got a phone call from back home where Neely Smith said to me he spoke to Dr. Craven and they want me to come back. And I must leave it to Dr. Craven
Mm.
and Professor Fritz Elof. They will go to the international board meeting, the rugby board meeting, and they'll see what they can do. Okay. And then I went back. And then in 1985, I got reinstated into rugby again, international rugby again, because Dr. Craven and Professor Elof actually did quite a bit at the International Rugby Board meeting, and I think they took it out or they changed the constitution about American football, because let's be honest, it's not like there's 1,000 guys coming from rugby to American football. You have to grow up with the game like they do in America, and have to build up a CV and whatever. And then I got back into rugby, and then I played till 93 when I finished in Italy.
Wow, it's amazing. I want to just touch on Texas rugby, right? Because I lived in Austin for a few years and they're so passionate about the rugby. And the Dallas Harlequins, I know them really well, a lot of good people there. What was the rugby like when you played in that national championship? I mean, you obviously were kicking for, Northern Transvaal and the Springboks. What was it like playing in a domestic, local club level?
I must say that the
Yeah.
standard was surprisingly much better than I ever anticipated. We had quite a strong league then. Houston had quite a number of teams. Denver was always a difficult team to play against. That was one of the I want to say more difficult games to win. At the end, we did play the Chicago Lions in the semi-final, and then the LA team. Is it LA Blues? I think in the final, if I can recall. So many years ago, but we actually beat them 30-18, I think, in the final. And that for me was quite an achievement. Just being part of something very special. I don't think there's a lot of South Africans that can walk around and say they won the national championship in America.
No.
I'm talking many, many years ago. Lately, you know, rugby is played by everybody everywhere in the world. So of course you find South Africans playing all over the world at the moment. But in those days, we were a couple of South Africans in that side, and we still very, very good friends. But it just shows you, that's the thing about rugby. You make a rugby friend, you make a friend for life, and that's just the way it is. But it was, I think the time at the Cowboys was just the most amazing thing. If you take it, the training camp, we were still at Thousand Oaks. Okay, it's a mental battle. It's not really a physical battle. It's a mental battle because every morning at 7 o'clock in those days, somebody walks in your dorm, and if they call your name, next thing is pack and get your flight out and you home. So it wasn't easy. So just to survive every day, I think it was more the mental side of it than the physical side, because you can kick a ball, or you can throw a ball, or you can catch a ball, but to make sure that you keep surviving, I think that's the mental side that actually puts more pressure on the individual than actually the physical side. I don't know how it is lately, but in those days, that was it. And as simple as that. So you had to just survive day by day.
Yeah, it sounds like an episode of Survivor when you're stuck on the island and people leaving left,
Mm-hmm.
right, and center. Now, I want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
your Italian adventure. Then you played for Rovigo in Italy.
Yeah.
119 times. You won 2 national championships there. Talk us about the decision to go to Italy, and what did you learn about yourself as well in that environment?
I think somewhere along the line, I don't ever look at myself as a little bit of a rebel, but I just wanted to, you know, I I believe I've decided I'm a rugby player. I would have loved to be a professional rugby player, but in our days, you just couldn't. That's why in '77, Mick Quinn from Ireland invited me. So I went to play there for Lansdowne Road, but that was for 3 or 4 months. Then I played in Dallas for the Harlequins. And then in '87, I actually got invited to go and play exhibition game in Italy against Rovigo. But I think Neely Smith, the coach, had a little bit of an idea of trying to get me to Italy. And we played well. We actually beat Rovigo on the day, and I walked off the pitch and that night, I met the president, and they offered me a contract. And I was not the only guy. I think we were a number of guys that a lot of guys saw those things as a little bit of holiday, where I just saw it as a little bit of a job. Go and do your job for the team. But I had to make a decision. I got an offer to go and play in Wales, England, France, and also Italy. And then I looked at all the possibilities. And then I thought, okay, if I want to keep playing between two countries, that means South Africa and any other country, I think the Italian scenario gave me the better option, if I can put it that way. If I went to France, might have turned out totally different, or Wales or England. Okay, but then I was fortunate enough to actually play in Italy. And as soon as I finished on the Saturday or the Sunday in Italy, the Monday I was back in South Africa, started training, and then got back into the rugby scene in South Africa. As soon as I finished on the Saturday, in those days, I can recall we played a Currie Cup final on the Saturday. And on the Sunday, I was playing in Italy the next day. Flew out that Saturday night after winning a Currie Cup, flew out and played the Sunday, and then started until we finished up in Italy, and then fly back to South Africa, and then, play in what do you call it, in South Africa and Italy. And it worked out, I think, 1 or 2 years. It worked out where I was. We did well in Italy, so the seasons kept going a little bit longer. Where I played Saturday in South Africa, flew out on the Saturday night, played on Sunday in Italy, then flew back to South Africa. Then I played the Saturday in South Africa, the Sunday in Italy, just to make sure you do your part. Now as a fly-off, you can look after yourself. It's not like a forward, you can, but at the end, you need to do your part for the team in any case. But it was all just, put it this way, it was all just fun, if I can put it that way. It wasn't overthinking something, just do it, you know. I sort of got myself surviving to say, if I get on a plane here and I go to Italy, I didn't care what was happening in South Africa. Then I just play in Italy. As soon as I get on a plane there arriving in South Africa, then I was switch off whatever happened in Italy. And I think that's the way I kept surviving, moving around and whatever. But if you think about it, apart from an injury here and there, um, it nearly worked out. I think there's 2 or 3 years. We didn't play on Christmas weekends and New Year weekends. Okay, the rest you kept playing. So it was very close to 45, 50 games a season, or a year. So that was extremely busy, and that was sort of kept going for like 6 years. So it was, and the thing is, it's not the physical side, because I tore my pelvis at one stage and survived with injections and this and that and whatever. But at the end, it was all about just keep your mental side well balanced, and then you can survive. And the guys that I played with were absolutely amazing guys. In Italy, I had Tito Lupine and Gert Small at one stage. I had Willie Offengower from Australia, Julian Gardner from Australia. So, we sort of met fantastic players. John Kerwin played in Italy. David Campisi played in Italy. when Smith played in, Michael Lainach played in Italy. So Italy had quite a number of internationals, but you were only allowed 2 internationals on the field. So and 99% all the best fly-halves in the world.
I was going to say, if you're only
played
allowed,
against.
if you're only allowed 2, you have to choose the
Yeah,
best.
and one is a fly-half, that's for
Yeah.
sure. At one stage I thought, maybe Italy should think a little bit how they're going to develop their own players. But it was in those days, so it was good fun, if I can put it that way. It was just good fun.
Yeah, truly amazing to play for 2 teams in one season. Like you said, going back and forth, that would never be considered this in this era. And with the traveling as well and everything else, unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to in any case,
Yeah.
because you sign now a contract. In those days,
Yeah.
I always say, when people say, "Yeah, but it sounds like you're not really an amateur," I said, "Of course we were amateurs. We got paid in cash, So, so you got your little paper bag with your money in,
Yes, tell
and
me
then
how
you
that worked,
survive.
because I have spoken to some friends that were part of an era like that. So would it be in a brown envelope, like in your bag or in your boot before the game, after the game? How did that process work?
No. It's
Yeah.
all above board. They give
Okay.
it to you on the table.
Okay.
I just put the bag on the table. It's not under there's that in
Yeah.
your boot. No. It's not
No.
like that. No. They
Okay.
put it on the table. They come
Yeah.
and they deliver. And they
Yeah.
say, "Here's your money." So, but it was.
Yeah.
I just want to say it was just all exciting.
Mm.
You can understand. I
Yeah.
think you can hear my voice. It was just all fun. And yes, see, the thing is, what I loved about Italy is that if the team wins,
Mm.
it's a great team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great Italian team. If they lose us, it's the bad foreigners. So
That's
that's
right.
the pressure.
Yeah.
That's the pressure, and
Mm.
and thinking back, I sometimes I just smile because it was amazing. If you win Monday morning 9 o'clock, you're in the first coffee shop, okay, and having brioches and espressos and that. If you lose, you duck and dive like till about the Thursday, okay, and then you sort of surface, and then you start moving around in town. Then you win on the weekend, then then it's just all survival, and but it was all, I think, and it was all just part of the deal, if I can put it that way.
Mm.
You do your part, and the town, at the end, what I actually achieved, and I think that's something quite special, is I'm an honorary citizen of Rovigo. So I think that's quite a little bit of
Yeah.
an achievement
Yeah.
or recognition for what I contributed. See, my point was, what can I contribute
Mm.
to the little town of Rovigo? And yes, it was on the rugby field, but I still contributed to hopefully, for 6 years that I was involved there, made Rovigo a little bit of a rugby town, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because of you playing there, we got to know more about that place as well. I think that's the important thing, being ambassador for your country and for the global game as well, which is so amazing. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of tough questions now, and you have to list a few players, right? I know you played with so many, you played against so many. So if you had to cast your mind back, toughest opponent that you faced, and it doesn't have to be a fly half, it could be a forward that came after you, but anybody stand out when I say toughest opponent?
I had enough loose forwards that was chasing me all over the park. I always say, even in today's game, it doesn't matter how you look at rugby. The fly is the only guy that's playing against 5 guys. And then people will look at me and say, "What are you talking about now?" Say, there's 3 loose forwards that would love to catch you, plus a scrum off, plus a fly off. Wing is against the wing.
Yeah,
The
true.
center is against the center. The poor fly is against 5 guys. Okay. No, I think Dallen, I'm just going to give you a little bit, because
Mm.
amazingly, I was just sitting last night thinking of exceptional players when I played.
Mm.
Okay. Serge Blanco. Yeah, no, everybody knows him. Then you look at John Kerwin, David Campisi. I'm going to leave South Africans out of this
Yeah.
just giving you a little bit of an idea,
Mm.
and then I'll talk about the South Africans. Okay, then you look at your centers. You look at Will Carling, Jeremy Gascott, Tamarin, Philip Sela, you know. It's names everybody knows, you know.
Yeah.
Then you look at fly-halves, Hazel Porter, Rob Andrew, Ollie Campbell, you know. Scrum-halves, Nick Jones will be absolutely my number one scrum-half that I played against, you know. And then you look at Graham Price in the front row and Peter Wheeler. You look at Andy Dalton, Richard Lowe. You're looking at Billy Beaumont. You're looking at uh, Andy Hayden. You're looking at Marin Mexted. You're looking at Peter Winterbottom. You look at Jean-Pierre Reeves. I can just keep going on, and it's names that you actually know, and
Yeah.
everybody else know. You know, and Gareth Edwards. I actually was fortunate enough to play one game against him. So there's so many guys that I can just put on the table and say, now there they are. Now in a South African context, you're looking at fullbacks, Johan Jennis, Gijsie Pinaar. Then you look at Ray Morton, Karel du Plessis, Michael du Plessis and Donnie Gerber, Ivan Serfontein, Tommy du Plessis, Robert de Pre, you know. Then you go, Don du Plessis, Uli Schmidt. I still believe it's one of the best hookers I've ever played against, the same as Sean Fitzpatrick from the international side. You know, then you look at Louis Moorman, Mona van Heerden. That's more South Africans that the South Africans will know, but those guys, Kevin de Klerk and Burger Gelnys, Rob Lowe, Gert Small, Mona du Plessis, Wynand Klaasen. You know, you just and that's why I said to you earlier, I was extremely fortunate to play against unbelievable players and also with unbelievable players. So I actually came out of an era when I thought rugby worldwide was in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about that. So, scrum halves, can you mention a couple of scrum halves you enjoyed playing with, and also what made them good?
See, the way I look at scrum, because a lot of people ask me the question, who's the best?
Yeah.
It's not who's the best. It's, you look at Devon Serfontein. He was totally different to Tommy du Plessis.
Hmm.
Devon Serfontein was just like a little rubber ball that was all over the park. You just couldn't stop him, okay? Tommy du Plessis was, again, like an extra loose forward because he was totally different. Robert de Pre had a pass from here to wherever, you know? So it was always nice to play with him because he created the space for you, you know?
Hmm.
Then you look at Garth Wright, still one of the few guys off the deck, by far the quickest, you know, getting rid of the ball. Then, as I mentioned to you, you look at Dave Loveridge from New Zealand. You look at Nick Jones from Australia. You know, I don't think there's a lot of scrum halves that's better than Nick Jones. So, you know, and then guys will tell you, but Gareth Edwards, unbelievable. Even in my days, guys that I played against, Barry Vormeras, Paul Bayvel, you know, South Africans that contributed to their teams. But I look at and say, what do you want out of the scrum? If you want a kind of a Devon Serfontein, then he is the best.
Hmm.
If you want a kind of Tommy du Plessis, that's the extra, then he is the best. Because it depends on how you want to. If you want a combination, it's, you know, a lot of guys are stronger on a little bit on this aspect of scrum of play than some other guys. That's why I say I was just, the way I looked at it, I was just absolutely fortunate to play with fantastic scrum offs. And I've seen quite a number of scrum offs. You can imagine, it's
Yeah.
17 years, you see quite a number of scrum offs, okay? And I recall that one day a new scrum off turned up, a young guy, a very good guy, scrum off. And he said to me, okay, he said, now, where do you want the ball? I said, what do you mean? Where do you want the ball? He said, no, where do you as a fly? Where do you want the ball? Where you want it in front? I said, just pass it in my direction. I'll catch it. That's my job.
Yeah.
Okay. Because think about it. If you go forward, yes, you can give the ball every time at the same place.
Yeah.
But if you go backwards because your forward's getting dominated, you're not going to be able to pass me the ball every time in the perfect spot. So just pass it in my direction. I'll catch it and I'll move on from there. So he just laughed, okay, because I think that's the first time. I think normally flyers say, no, I want it here. I want it half a meter in front of me. I want it there. I want it there.
Yeah.
No. Just
No.
give it. I need to sort it out. I need to help you. That's why it's a partnership between scrum off and fly off. It's not a scrum off, a fly off. That's why it's halfbacks. They need to sort out the forwards and the backs. And some games you get only good ball, and sometimes you only get bad ball. So the bad ball, you must make a good ball. And that's the decision of 9 and 10 that
Yeah.
can do that.
Now, what was it like? So, growing up, I ended up playing center, particularly outside center. So, Donny Gerber was somebody I would look at and be like, okay, that's my position. Wow. I mean, to this day, people ask me, in your position, who is your favorite person to watch playing? It was still Donny Gerber after all this time. What was it like playing with him? Because he had an innate ability to beat people, to throw dummies, to smash people to the ground, to run faster than the wings. I mean, he was unbelievable, wasn't he?
He and Michael du Plessis were actually exceptional
Yeah.
in the midfield. Absolutely. There's some other guys that I played with that maybe as good, but if people ask me, looking at all the guys who actually impressed you, or I would always say, who would I love to play with?
Yeah.
Okay. Then there's two guys. That's nothing to do with other guys. I'm not doing anybody down here. I played against Frank Buns and Warwick Taylor and from New Zealand, but Philip Silla and Donny Gerber will be my ideal combination in the midfield because they were just exceptional. And Donny was a guy and I mentioned it one day in studio at Supersport. I said, you know, he was one of the few guys that worked harder without the ball than with the ball. And I could see I baffled a couple of people, what do you mean, And that's the thing about Donny Gerber. He was working so hard to get in the right position, running at the right angle. Not when he has the ball, without the ball, to make sure that when you hit trouble, he's there to support. His support play was just unbelievable. And I think that's why he was exceptional. Okay. Yes, he did play for Eastern Province. Okay. I still believe that he might have been the greatest ever in my book. But it just shows you loyalty. Don't ever take that away from him. Loyal towards the the province he played in, grew up in. If he played in those days, either for a Western Province, that's Stormers now, or a Northern Transvaal, the Bulls. If he played in one of those two teams, he would have just been unstoppable. I think he would have scored so many tries that people would have lost count. But he was loyal to Eastern Province, and I love it when he talks and he said, I played 179 games for the Bulls or 128 times captain. I think we lost about 15, I think. Okay. And he said he won about 15 out of his 100 plus games. But yes, I tell you, when we went down to Port Elizabeth, it was extremely difficult because they were not an easy side at all. But they had a good team at that stage, and they made it extremely difficult. But it's because also you had a player like a Donny Gerber in the Eastern Province side.
Yeah, I remember watching the clips. My grandfather gave me it was a Betamax tape, not even a VHS Betamax, with 101 try line tails on it. A lot of it was South African tries, and I could see Donny Gabber when there was a break from Carl Du Plessis or somebody, he would be behind
That's
him
it.
talking to him, saying, "I'm going to be on your left in just a moment." Boom, you'd be on the left, free and score. It was just unbelievable. You could see the communication. Let's talk about fly-offs after you retired. So you've been involved. We'll talk about in a second. Over 30 years in broadcasting. Are there a few fly-offs to you that have stood out that you've enjoyed watching represent South Africa?
Yeah, I enjoyed Joel Stransky,
Yeah,
Jannie de Beer. I think he was. Butch James had a fantastic World Cup in 2007. He really had a good World Cup. Mornestein, I thought, did exceptionally well for South Africa. Then Andre Pollard lately, the new kid on the block, Sasha. I think he's a talent that can go a very, very long way. So he's so talented. And so South Africa wise, I think we quite fortunate
mm,
with the number of fly-offs we have lately available. So we generally, you know, if you go from 95, we were very fortunate. Henry Hannibal, another fly-off I really enjoyed watching. Who else? It's more I think the guys that actually play for South Africa at the end
yeah,
that will always stand out. Uh, a guy that I think maybe not always got the recognition, but maybe deserved a little bit was Louis Kuhn. I think he was actually a good fly-off. Um, and then, yes, Morgenstein, as I mentioned. And then internationally, I think Johnny Wilkinson was absolutely fantastic. Ntamak of France, I actually enjoy watching him. Um, you know, um, uh, Dan Carter, who will ever forget Dan Carter? I think he was just exceptional. Andrew Mertens, 95 World Cup. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Um, in Michael Leinach, I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Stephen Larkham, I loved watching him. Carlos Spencer, another guy.
yeah,
I think sometimes, maybe um, for some, let's say, uh, people, a little bit thinking too much out of the box, but you also needed those guys. So, Bowden Barrett, I think he's another guy. Mwanga is another guy. Mackenzie, I actually like at fly off for New Zealand. So there's quite a number of fly offs. O'Connor, I think from Australia, I think he's a little bit. I think he should have actually got more opportunities. I think he's got the capabilities really to had a, let's say, better career than he had. Matt Guitar, I thought at one stage he was actually very good for Australia. So there are so many guys going. Farrell from England, Finn Russell from Scotland. You can just keep going, you know.
yeah,
And the guys just every year there's new kids on the block taking over. What I would say is I would still think that somewhere along the line, some coaches need to understand there's a little bit more in the role of a fly off. He is still a little bit the decision maker, if I can put it that way. And sometimes you see teams, the ball goes everywhere except to the fly off. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Because you've been around, okay?
yeah,
You did analyzing of players, you played, you coach, whatever, okay? If you think about it, if the ball goes from 9 to 10, the 10 can give, or the 10 has, let's say, 10 options, okay? Skip pass, grabber, long kick, chip, inside pass, scissors, dummy, whatever. Okay. So who do you want in a position to make decisions? It's your number 10. Now, if you give that same pass to a forward, how many options do you think you have?
Yeah, it's a great question because, I haven't played in the forwards, but the forwards generally want to take it upfield themselves and, take on
That's
people.
one
So
option.
one option. Yeah, exactly. You're right. Great analysis.
Well, if they pop,
Yeah.
it's two options.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a guy that should get the ball that has 10 options, as to a guy getting the ball that might have one or two options, isn't it?
Great point. Great point.
And how many times do we see in a new game too many forwards between 9 and 10?
Yeah.
Yes, if there's different lines they're running, yes, that's a different ball game. If it's the game plan we're talking about, that's a different ball game. Okay. But what I'm saying is, who do you want to make decisions? It's 9 and 10. But the 9 can only give the ball to 10 if there's not four forwards between 9 and 10.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I want to touch on that because you bring such a good point. So you've been working in broadcasting you spent 30 years at SuperSport. That is a record. You've been passionate about broadcasting for so many years. Tell us a little bit about what it takes. I have a broadcast academy teaching young commentators as well. But what does it take to be an elite analyst? To see the game and talk about it.
I think for me was always to find something that I believe you might have missed. Like, if you think about it, somebody scores a try. So what do we show on TV? The try.
Yeah.
Okay. Or the last two passes to the try. But what created the try? That's what I'm interested in. So I want to give the viewer something that he thinks, oh, I missed that. Is that why this happened? Is that why this guy scored? That's what I was, and I think I don't want to sound egocentric or whatever, but I've got a little bit of a feeling for the game to actually see it in a different way. And I think that's why maybe I survived quite a long time in that industry, because it's a difficult industry, and I think it's more being informative, not trying to tell people what you did,
Yeah.
but if you miss like an opportunity that we've seen lately, the guy should just drop in the pocket, do the drop kick, game done and dusted. A game you're losing, you actually win. To show that it's got nothing against the player that didn't do it. It's just that maybe next time he might think about it, and that's where I believe I contributed quite a bit. It's like I spoke to a guy one day, and I said to him, "Listen, we spoke about being in studio, he on the field, and he said to me, he said, yeah, but in the one game, you showed me making a couple of mistakes and the opposition scored." I said, okay, as a South African, you're a South African.
Yeah.
People in South Africa are interested in the South Africans, not in the foreign players. Okay, they played, the Bulls played against the team in New Zealand. I said, okay, that's one. Secondly, it's because of 1, 2, 3 errors, okay, that they scored 1, 2, 3 tries. Said I didn't mean it personally. And then I realized we also need to be extremely sensitive, because I can show you running over me, okay, and scoring. Now, showing that puts me in a bad light. But if you didn't run over me, if I stopped you, then there wouldn't have been a try. You see the fine line that you need to be very careful, because I never had a hidden agenda against any player to say, oh, but if you score 3 tries, Dallen, and you're running 3 times over me,
Yeah.
I need to show that. I can't just leave it and say, oh, Dallen was this great player. Why was Dallen this great player? Because Naas actually made the mistakes.
Yeah.
And a couple of players, I think, maybe sometimes feel that's a little bit too personal. But, nobody's sitting there and trying to put a player in a bad light. It's the game. Next week, I run over you again. You see how it works?
Yeah.
Sport is the most amazing thing, because from this Saturday to that Saturday, you can go from hero to zero. But 7 days later, you might be the hero again. And I think that's how people need to look at it. Because there's always, and think about this, there's always 90% mistakes that leads to tries for the opposition. And you have to show sometimes, unfortunately, the mistake that led to a try for somebody else. Otherwise, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like you said, you're calling out the why a try was scored, and you can't gloss over it. People will, naturally take it personally, but it's like you said, you can be in one game, you could miss a tackle, and then the next thing you could be scoring a try and changing the game as well. So those things come through. Now, you were on a boots and all for many, many years with Darren Scott. One of your classic one-liners was, "On the other hand, Darren," because you were trying to give some advice there as well. Tell us about what it was like being on that show, and just informing South Africans and the world about some of the things that you were witnessing.
See, the thing is, what we did there in that magazine show was actually to show a little bit more about the games that's been played on the weekend. Okay, why teams win, why teams loses, what might help a little bit for the next game. But think about this, and I know it got stuck to a lot of people on the other hand. Okay, but if you think about it, I'm sitting there doing New Zealand playing South Africa. Then I'll give you the reasons why South Africa might win. Okay, but I also have to give you reasons why New Zealand might win.
Totally.
Okay, so I can't just say South Africa and then okay, and it just got stuck sometimes, and because you don't sit there and think, you just talk straight off the cuff, and then you say, okay, South Africa, if we do this and this and this and this and this, we can win this game. But on the other hand, if New Zealand do this and this and this and this and this, they might win this game. So, but then people started making a little bit of a joke and even songs and whatever. But the most important thing is I got my point over because somebody listened.
Exactly. And you have to present both sides. I think that's important too. You have some countries that are very much pro, even when they commentate, not these days, but back in the day, let's say some of the Australian commentators were very pro their country. And if something happened against them, they wouldn't believe it, type thing. So it's really good to present both sides.
Yeah. And see, to add to what you've just said now, that was my point always. What gives us to any idea to underestimate anybody?
Yeah.
Nothing. If you do that, you're in trouble already.
Yeah.
That's why I had to put both cases on the table and say, if South Africa do this, they can win. If New Zealand do this, they can win. Okay. And so I always had to give both sides an equal opportunity and that's the thing that I hated, especially being in studio when people say predict. How can we predict any result?
Yeah.
To make a prediction makes you look stupid. Why? Because I can ask you, Alan, okay, who's going to win South Africa in the series against South Africa against New Zealand later this year?
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, New Zealand, for argument's sake. You say New Zealand, okay? I'd say South Africa. Now, let's say New Zealand win, just for argument's sake, okay? Then people will turn around and say, oh, yeah, I told you Naas doesn't know the game.
That's right.
Why do
Exactly.
you want to make a prediction? How can you make a prediction? Then people want to have the score. I know the new thing is give us the score. If I could give you that, I would have been the best bookie ever.
Exactly.
I wouldn't commentate on rugby. I would just be a bookie and tell you, okay, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. That's why I always had the feeling nobody can ever underestimate. And I'm not saying they did, okay, but we had extremely weird results during World Cups.
Hmm.
Fiji, Wales, South Africa, Japan. You want me to go
Yes,
on and
correct.
on? And
Exactly. Yeah,
you see,
you're right.
that's why never, never, ever. You go onto the field, do your job properly. And I promise you, at the end, if you do that, 90%, if you're the better team, you will win. But when there's something else in between, you might stand a chance to lose.
Yeah, that's why I love broadcasting because it's so dynamic and anything can happen. And as a commentator, I try my best to present both cases all the time and be equally excited for both teams because you never know when that Japan team's going to beat the Springboks at a Rugby World Cup or somebody's going to do well.
Absolutely.
So I even prepare at the end for the closing remarks just a couple of points as if either team win the game, right? So that we prepared for that as well. But you're so right. So I love that. Like I want to ask you about coaching quickly. So you've coached a lot in the past as well. You haven't spent time, I think, in India also. How do you like coaching, and is it something you may see yourself doing more of?
Yeah, what I love about coaching is because I'm a little bit detail orientated. I think a lot of coaches miss detail. You know, there's a way to catch a ball, there's a way to pass a ball, there's a way to throw the ball in, there's a way to do this, there's a way to do that. And I love getting into that nitty gritty. I don't like this overall, just in general. I don't like that. I like a player to be actually on top of his game all the time. And the only way you can actually do that is if you coach detail. Yes, it's not easy for everybody. Okay. It's not always possible, if I can put it that way. But at least, you know, I can assist you to make sure I can get the best out of you. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's for me, what do I want to achieve as a coach? Yes, results. Okay. But you can only get results if you've got players that can actually adapt to any scenario on a rugby field, know all the skill, from catching, passing, popping, kicking, chipping, grubber. They have to do everything. Now, yes, I am fortunate because of playing and 30 years of analyzing. I've seen like everything that you can imagine. Okay, so that's why that I like to put that knowledge for a youngster because at the end, all I want to do is I want to make sure it's not about me because I had my time. That's the thing. I had my time. I can't change anything, but I can help you to just be maybe better than yesterday. Now, if it's the genetic brain profiling that I'm bringing in, if it's the coaching that I'm bringing in, it's the fitness. There are guys that knows a lot more about fitness than I will ever know. So then you get the right guy. See, I'm one of the guys that I like when you're in a coaching scenario, surround myself with great people. I'm not a jack of all trades. Yes, I can look at the scrum, I can look at the line out, I can look at the maul, I can look at the backline play, I can look at the kicking game. Yes, I can do all that, but I'm not a master of all. So when we go, and this is a little tongue in cheek, when we go to defense, I will get the guy that I know can sort it out for me. You know, and that's the way I like coaching. I think that's the fun thing about coaching is get the right guys around you. Okay. Now, bringing the genetic profiling into this, I'm a little bit right brain thinking outside the box. So what do I need? I need a left brainer to keep structure. Otherwise, it will absolutely be chaotic. because we will be all over the show and nothing will happen because nothing will have structure. That's where you go absolutely opposite what you bring to the table. Now that makes a nice combination. So there's so many things that at the end, and I think that's what Rassie actually really got to the T is he surrounded himself with very good coaches.
Yeah, you're spot on there. That is the key to successful coaching as well. Is some people have egos, so that doesn't work out. But those that don't can
That's
bring
not going to work.
Exactly, good group together and get the right results. So let's touch on this. So you're living in Kansas now. What do you think the next chapter, or what would you like the next chapter in your rugby journey to look like?
I'm getting into a little bit into the rugby scenario here. TV will always fascinate me. I think, with 2031 coming very quickly onto America with the World Cup here, I think there's, being there, I want to say, done the job, got the T-shirt. I think there's a nice way of, let's say, getting a nice magazine show going with local talent yourself, making sure that we actually get people that like the game, don't know the game all that well, to inform them, to tell them what a great game this rugby actually is. And let's be fair, it's a fantastic game. It is really, it can be the most amazing game. But I want to say before 2031, if I can contribute, it would be absolutely fantastic. So we'll see what lies ahead. But let's see. There might be one or two opportunities that come our way where we can contribute to make rugby just a little bit better.
I love that. Great. Now, listen, last one for you. We always ask our guests on the Rugby Hive podcast to give a little bit of advice if possible. You've watched the game evolve over 5 decades. If you could sit down with a young fly half, someone that's, finding themselves on the field, is there some advice or something you would say to them as a player?
Yeah, the most important thing is you need to understand you're part of a team. To go on your own merry way, it's not going to work. To think that you're the best, no, unfortunately, you're not. Why? Because since the 80s, there's been amazing players. And you know what? In 2030 and 40 and 50, there's still going to be amazing players. Most important thing is equip yourself with all the attributes that a fly half needs. Okay, that's one. Secondly, do your job. Thirdly, make the right decisions at the right time. I think, Dallen, that's the thing that we sometimes miss is guys don't make the right decisions at the right time. And only a scrum of fly half can do that. The bad ball needs, as I said earlier, needs to become a good ball. Who can make that? From scrum off to fly half. The fly half can make it a good ball. Okay. Or, make, as I mentioned, right decisions. And then in general, just keep in mind, if you do your job, everybody else's job is becoming a little bit easier because a forward would love running 50 meters forward than 50 meters backwards.
Beautifully said. Naas, listen, it's been an absolute honor. I want to appreciate you for your time, your honesty, your insight. You have been a shining light for South Africa for many, many years, and great to have seen you as a youngster growing up. And now we get to chat here and look forward to seeing the next chapter and teaming up with you as well. Excited to see what's coming up here for you in America.
No, thank you. And thanks for the time that we spent together.
Bye, Dankie Naas. Also never stops talking, does Perenara, but I suppose that's the job of a scrum half.
Set!
He feeds. 5 out from the own line. Satutu picks up, finds Jordan. Skins one. Back to Hoskins Satutu. Here comes Perenara. Back on the inside. Barrett! Oh, not even Wes Craven could have directed that. It's frightening from the All Blacks. And Bowden Barrett gets a popular try in DC. Thank you for listening, you sleek sensations.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to Rugby Hive Podcast and catch us on all the socials at Rugby Hive.
We appreciate your support. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
On the left-hand side.